What if everything you've believed about needing a church to connect with the divine was never the whole story? It might sound shocking, maybe even unsettling, but there's a growing wave of individuals who are quietly walking away from traditional religion. Their reason? They've uncovered a truth that changes everything about how we find God and how God finds us. If you're watching this, there's a good chance you felt that same inner stirring, that faint signal urging you to look deeper. Perhaps you've noticed subtle signs, an unease in your heart whenever you step inside a place of worship, or a realization that the weekly routine of sermons and rituals no longer nourishes your spirit. You might be wondering, am I losing my faith? You're not alone in that question. Around the world, people are beginning to suspect that the walls of a church do not contain the full magnitude of God's presence. They're starting to see that genuine connection with the divine might thrive most powerfully when unconfined. Something is calling you to step beyond the comfort zone of tradition, something bigger than any one congregation, bigger than any one doctrine, and possibly bigger than religion itself. In this video, we're going to reveal the controversies, the personal stories, the hidden motivations, and the shifting tides that are drawing many into a more direct path with the divine. By the end, you'll see how leaving the church behind, while radical for some, can become the most liberating spiritual decision you'll ever make. So keep watching, because there's a reason you're here, and it might just change your life. Not too long ago, the notion of skipping church would have seemed unthinkable. Religious institutions were once the epicenter of community life. Yet, in recent years, there's a remarkable trend that few expected: a steady rise in people quietly exiting organized religion. These aren't folks who are losing faith in the sense of turning their backs on God. Many still pray, meditate, or engage in personal forms of worship. What's different is that they're saying, "I don't need an institution to feel spiritually alive." Behind this movement are various rumors and real-life controversies, stories of hidden documents that never see the light of day, whispers about leaders who break their own rules, and hush-hush accusations that occasionally make headlines. Each new expose seems to chip away at the trust people once placed wholeheartedly in religious authority. But there's a deeper reason why so many are walking away. They are discovering that genuine spirituality might not always align with the institution's version of events. The old ways, weekly pew sitting, reciting rituals by rote, are no longer satisfying to those who feel a direct call to experience God without the barriers of formalities. If you've ever felt that pull, a subtle sense that maybe you're not home in your local congregation, that discomfort might be more than just a passing feeling. Could it be a divine nudge telling you the time is right to venture beyond the familiar? When you realize that countless others share this same restlessness, you start to see that you're part of something bigger. You may not have joined a protest or made a public stand, but your quiet decision to explore a different path is, in itself, revolutionary. You are not alone. The question is, will you answer this calling, or will you ignore it for the comfort of what's familiar? Organized religion has weathered its fair share of controversies. You've probably heard of the more public ones: high-profile lawsuits, questionable financial dealings, or leaders forced to step down under a cloud of suspicion. These incidents catch media attention, but there are quieter controversies too. Rumors persist about hidden archives filled with knowledge that doesn't align with the official narrative. Some talk about hush-hush Accusations surfaced behind closed doors, only to disappear under layers of secrecy. For decades, people trusted that religious institutions were bastions of truth. But every so often, a shocking detail emerges, adding weight to the suspicion that not all is as transparent as it appears. One reason these stories resonate so deeply is that they clash with the core principle most of us were taught, that a church, mosque, or temple should be a moral compass. It should hold itself to a higher standard. So, when trust is broken, or even appears compromised, many are left reeling. The disillusionment can be heartbreaking. This is often the catalyst that propels individuals to wonder if there's an alternative approach, if God might be calling them to a more personal, unfiltered relationship. After all, if the people at the top are guilty of wrongdoing, can they truly guide you to spiritual truth? Some speculate that these cracks in the institution are not random, but part of a wider plan to set the truly chosen apart. They believe it's as if the divine is allowing these controversies to surface so that those who are ready can step forward and realize they never needed anyone else to mediate between them and God. It's a jolting thought, maybe even unnerving. But consider the possibility that institutions, like all human constructs, are fallible. If we accept that, then it follows that the absolute truth might be found elsewhere, in the purity of direct communion with the divine. And the deeper you dig, the more likely you are to uncover the real reason these controversies keep piling up. They might be a wake-up call. The word chosen can sound elitist, but it's less about thinking you're above anyone else and more about sensing an undeniable divine spark within yourself. It's the feeling that you've been set on a unique path, one that requires you to question everything about how faith is practiced. You might notice that while many find solace in traditional services, you feel slightly disconnected or restless. Have you ever sat in a religious gathering and felt like something was off, that there must be more to it than standing and sitting on cue, singing the scheduled hymns and listening to one person speak week after week? This internal disconnect is one of the first signs that you might be chosen. It's not a statement that other believers are inferior. Rather, it suggests your spiritual purpose doesn't quite fit neatly into established structures. Ordinary churchgoers often feel comfortable. It satisfies them to follow the collective routine. But if you're chosen, you might crave something deeper, a personal encounter that bypasses the formalities. What if that sense of yearning is actually an invitation from the divine? Sometimes, the more you try to force yourself into the traditional box, the more uneasy you feel. That discomfort could be the proof you've been searching for, the symptom of outgrowing a place that once served its purpose but can no longer contain your expanding faith. This might manifest in subtle ways at first. Maybe you find yourself daydreaming during sermons, or you feel an urgency to skip the social hour and retreat into solitude to pray on your own. If so, consider it a signal. You're not broken or sinful. You're simply being guided to a different realm of connection, where no one else's rules or rituals stand between you and God. Let that sink in. Maybe you've been chosen not to blend in, but to stand out, and that is precisely the point. Making the decision to walk away from organized religion isn't a tidy process. Often, you'll face backlash, sometimes from those closest to you. Critics may label you as lost, rebellious, or even blasphemous. Family and friends might question your choices, telling you that you're walking into spiritual danger. This can lead to a sense of betrayal, especially when people you care about turn their backs on you for choosing a path that diverges from theirs. So why do they lash out? For some, it's fear. The fear that if you're right, their entire belief system is flawed. Others might feel threatened by the notion that God can be accessed without traditional structures. After all, they've spent their lives abiding by what they were taught. They might worry that your unconventional approach challenges the legitimacy of the community they hold dear. And yet, these tense reactions can be clarifying. They shine a light on the difference between those who are open to new spiritual truths and those who prefer the status quo. This is often the point where you realize that listening to the same repeated warnings and rituals was never feeding your spirit anyway. Your quest for deeper connection surpasses the desire to please others. But here's the real kicker. Out of this conflict often comes confirmation. When others accuse you of being misguided, your inner conviction might grow stronger. You sense that the divine is whispering, "This is the path I've set for you." Though the betrayal stings, it can also galvanize your resolve. And what happened next would shock everyone is how some personal stories go. Once that resolve is sparked, people find themselves uncovering an empowering relationship with God, one that stands firm, with or without anyone else's approval. Stepping away from the familiar structure of organized religion can feel daunting. After all, traditions and rituals provide a comforting sense of order. Yet for those who heed the call to leave, a surprising discovery awaits, a mind-blowing level of spiritual freedom that you may have never imagined. It's almost as if layers of ceremony and mediation have been stripped away, revealing a divine connection that's startling in its intimacy. Once you realize you don't need priests, pastors, or a building to speak with God, something extraordinary happens. Your prayers become less formulaic and more like genuine conversations. You might find yourself tuned into subtle signs, a sense of peace, a timely coincidence, or an intuitive knowing that confirm God hears you directly. No weekly protocol, no lines to recite, no hierarchical chain of command. Just you and the divine, with no filters. For some, this revelation hits like a wave. All the time spent following intricate doctrines suddenly pales in comparison to the simple act of talking to God in private moments, while driving, cooking, or sitting quietly at dawn. It's not that tradition is inherently bad, it's that for certain individuals, tradition can become a barrier instead of a bridge. If you're one of those people, leaving behind the formalities can usher in unimaginable clarity and empowerment. That's the paradox. You lose the comfort of predictable routines, but you gain the freedom to explore spirituality in a raw, authentic way. You might wonder, is it really okay not to attend services? If you're truly chosen, the answer might be that it's not just okay, it's vital. By trusting your own connection with the divine, you honor the possibility that God has always wanted a direct relationship with you. And in the quiet moments away from the pews, you just might discover how profound that relationship can become. It's easy to slip into autopilot when it comes to religion. Many people attend services, recite creeds, and follow customs without ever questioning why. But there's a hidden danger in embracing blind obedience. You risk missing out on spiritual depth because your faith never becomes personally tested or deeply examined. You adopt beliefs by default rather than by conviction. History is full of examples, some shocking, of how this unquestioning mindset can lead to harm. Power-hungry leaders exploit the trust of sincere followers, Financial scandals are brushed under the rug. People are told to hush up about wrongdoing for the sake of the church's reputation. When faced with these issues, many remain silent, hoping their quiet compliance proves their devotion. Yet genuine faith isn't about shutting your eyes to uncomfortable realities. It's about seeking truth, wherever that search may lead. When you blindly follow, you hand over your spiritual agency to someone else. You assume they know better and that your own divine intuition is somehow less valid. But what if the real invitation, the one that separates the chosen from the crowd, is to challenge what you've been taught? By questioning, by probing deeper, you're actually exercising your God-given free will. This is where the path diverges for many. Some feel an internal nudge telling them they can't ignore these controversies anymore. They sense that continuing to sit in silence while ignoring unresolved scandals or doctrinal contradictions would be a betrayal of their own conscience. If that's you, it might be time to ask yourself, could my obedience be limiting my spiritual growth? Don't misunderstand. Respect for tradition can be valuable. But if tradition is stifling your personal revelation, it may be time to let it go. By now, you might be thinking, all right, I sense I'm on a different path. I'm ready to step away. But where do I go from here? The beauty of leaving the institution behind is that you make space for a more tailored approach to your spiritual journey. Instead of being spoon-fed sermons, you can craft personal practices that resonate with your soul. Consider starting with a simple daily ritual of silent reflection or prayer. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Even 5 minutes can shift your perspective. Write down insights in a journal. It helps clarify the faint whispers you might be hearing from within. You might also connect with a small group of like-minded individuals who value direct communion over institutional hierarchy. These gatherings can be as informal as meeting over coffee to share experiences, ask questions, and discuss the spiritual lessons you've learned through life itself. Another practice is contemplative reading. Pick sacred texts, yes, including scripture, but also explore other sources that resonate with spiritual truth. Compare them. See which universal principles emerge. You'll soon notice patterns of love, compassion, and personal transformation weaving through many traditions. This can broaden your perspective and strengthen your discernment. If the idea of personal prayer or meditation feels intimidating, remember that authenticity is key. Speak to God in your own words as you would to a trusted companion. There's no formula you must follow. Talk about your fears, your dreams, your gratitude. Listen in the stillness for subtle responses, a sense of peace, a spark of inspiration, or a coincidence that feels too precise to ignore. All these practical steps can help you reclaim your spiritual purpose. Instead of drifting aimlessly after leaving an organized structure, you become more intentional than ever. And let's not forget, true faith is active. It thrives when you participate, question, and explore. This is your time to do exactly that. Sometimes, people who leave the church later return, not to resume their old routines, but to share how they've grown. It can be a tense reunion. Some institutions react with suspicion, others with subtle hostility, and still others with surprised respect. In certain circles, word spreads about how that lost sheep found a new perspective, sparking genuine curiosity among the congregation. And here's where it can get surprising. Some religious leaders actually become intrigued by the transformative experiences of those who leave. They might notice a renewed light in your eyes, an unshakable sense of peace, or a laser-focused sense of purpose that wasn't there before. There have been cases where ex-church-goers, now confident in their direct communion with the divine, are invited to speak or share testimonies. They stand at the pulpit, not as the old subservient member, but as someone with a fresh voice and an undeniable message. However, this isn't always met with open arms. Power structures can feel challenged when someone returns with a new kind of authority that bypasses the usual chain of command. Rumors often swirl. Who do they think they are? Are they claiming to hear directly from God? Yet, your calm assurance might plant a seed in those who witness it. Some might privately admit they've felt stifled by the same system you broke free from. This dynamic, part respectful curiosity, part lingering tension, reveals that organized religion isn't monolithic. It's made up of individuals on different journeys, and some may be ripe for a deeper truth. Whether you end up reconciling with the institution or inspire others to find their own freedom, remember that your path is still your own. The church's response, whether supportive or skeptical, doesn't define your calling. You are chosen after all, and no external opinion can change that. You've come a long way in this exploration. From the first jarring idea that you might not need a church at all, to glimpsing the incredible freedom and powerful connection available when you step beyond those walls. Leaving the institution might feel like stepping off a cliff. It can be disorienting, especially if you once found comfort in routine. Yet for many who've done it, the reward is an unshakable sense of purpose, a more vibrant spirituality, and a direct line to the divine that surpasses any ceremony. This journey is not for everyone. Some find genuine fulfillment in traditional settings, and that's perfectly valid. But if you've listened this far, and these words resonate deep within you, consider it a sign that you're on the brink of something extraordinary. The controversies surrounding organized religion, the sense of betrayal you might have felt, and the yearning for more meaningful communion with God, all of these point to a pivotal moment. Now, it's up to you. Will you close this video and return to life as usual, tucking away the call you've felt stirring in your spirit? Or will you let this be the start of a new chapter, one where you dare to question, to wonder, to trust that your direct connection with the divine is both real and valid? In the end, the spiritual path isn't about winning approval. It's about living a truth so profound that it changes everything from the inside out. Whether you're just beginning to question or already walking confidently in your new calling, know this: you are not alone, and what lies ahead may be more beautiful and life-changing than you ever imagined. Embrace the uncharted path, step into the unknown with faith, and discover for yourself that sometimes leaving the church is the very thing that brings you closer to God. Thank you for watching until the end. If you felt a stirring inside, maybe a spark of recognition, take a moment to reflect on it. You never know, this could be the sign you've been waiting for. Stay curious, stay open, and remember, the divine is bigger than any building, any doctrine, and any boundary we humans try to impose. Keep seeking, keep questioning, and trust your own journey forward. That's the real power of being chosen.